Okay. My name is Barry Loveland, and I'm here with Lana Malmsheimer, who's our videographer today, and we're here on behalf of the LGBT Center of Central Pennsylvania History Project. Today is August 22nd, 2016, and we're here for an oral history interview with Jude Sharp. This interview is taking place at her home. And Jude, do we have your permission to record this interview today?
You do.
Great. We have a consent form for you to read over and sign at the end of the interview,
Okay.
and we'll take care of that later. So welcome today. I appreciate you taking your time to do the interview.
Oh, you're very welcome. It's my pleasure.
Great. So why don't we start at the beginning? Where were you born?
I was born in East Stroudsburg, Pennsylvania.
Okay. How long did you spend there?
Oh, well, my parents left there, I think, when I was maybe about 2 years old, so I don't really remember it. The first place I remember living was in Lima, Pennsylvania, which is in Delaware County. And then we moved to Upland, and then we moved to West Philadelphia, and we moved to Easton, moved to Philadelphia, so yeah, we moved around a good bit.
Was it for your father's occupation? Or?
I want you to come over here.
Okay.
Yeah. Should I wait till he gets moved? Yeah, my father was a Methodist minister and was a member of the Philadelphia Conference. And the Methodist Church moved their preachers around pretty quickly. I think they had this idea that they couldn't get into too much trouble if they left them in one church for too long. Actually, it was so that people in the congregations wouldn't get too allied with one pastor. So, yeah, we moved, the longest I lived anywhere when I was growing up was 5 years. And, you know, you were moving a long distance, like we moved from West Philadelphia to Easton, so you didn't, like, have friendships that you maintained over that amount of time. We just had, the friends we had were like family friends that were like my parents' friends.
So what was your family life like? Did you have brothers and sisters?
I have two younger sisters, and I don't know what to say about them. My kid sisters. Well, you know, when you're little, you don't get along with them too well, and when there are three of you, you form alliances here and there. Sometimes it was the two of them against me, and sometimes it was me and the middle one against the little one, or me and the little one against the middle one. But, you know, now we're all real good friends.
And your mother, was she occupied, have an occupation, or did she work at home? Or?
She was being the minister's wife, which is an occupation that one doesn't get paid for, but is very demanding, plus, you know, raising the three of us. And when I was in, I think it might have been about the fourth grade, my mother's father died. And shortly after that, my grandmother had a stroke, and then she recovered pretty well from that. And then she came to live with us, and she lived with us until, that would have been in the 50s sometime, and she lived with us until, like, she died in the, you know, 20 years later. And she was a very integral part of our family, and you know, I always am very glad that I grew up in a family where my grandmother was, you know, part of our daily life. And she was real cool.
And I should have asked you too, when were you born? What time, what year? Whatever.
I was born in November of 1947. So, been doing this for a while.
So you moved around a lot, so was it difficult for you in terms of school, making friends and keeping friends and that sort of thing?
I don't know. At the time, it didn't seem like it was, because it was the only life I knew. And I can remember that it was always very exciting when Dad would say that, oh, we got a new church and we're going to such and such a place. And, you know, we didn't know anything about it. And the interesting thing about that would be, like, when you would move, you would have to pack everything up into boxes, because you didn't take any of the furniture with you. So you would move into a new place and you didn't have your own dresser. You had whatever was in the parsonage. So, you know, it was kind of different that way. And I mean, in the church, you always felt like you were kind of special because you were the minister's kids, you know. In school, I always felt like an outsider, but I don't know whether that was because of me or because I was moving around. I always sort of thought it was because of me, you know, and I was just kind of didn't fit in too well.
Mm.
But some of that too in school probably was being the preacher's kid. You're a little odd, you know. So, but my middle sister, I think, was better at making friends than I was. You know, she was more of a outgoing kind of a personality.
Did you have any sense that you were different in terms of your sexuality
Well,
during school? Or?
that's interesting. When I think back, the earliest time I can remember having a sense of that was probably when I was in grade school and I was watching a bunch of women playing softball. And, you know, I thought that was like really, really cool. And I was always, you know, a real tomboy. And, you know, they were talking to me like they sort of thought I was a little mini dyke, you know. But this was like back in the 50s and the early 60s, and I didn't really even have a sense of what all that was. I actually would have been in the 50s because I was in junior high in the 60s. So I didn't really have a sense of what all that was, and so I would have to say I don't know. I don't know, because I didn't come out until much later. I didn't come out until I was, what the heck, I would have been maybe in my 20s sometime. I can remember it was in 1976, so there was a lot of span of time there when I was trying to fit in. But all of my close friends were always girls, and you know, all the people I really liked were girls. I grew up in an all-girl family, and so I mean, I didn't even know how to relate to boys. You know, I really didn't, but I didn't even think anything about that either, because you know, it's hard to find your way sometimes when you're a kid.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And did you date boys at all, or
Yeah, I did, and
yeah.
again, I felt awkward, and
Yeah.
but I did what I was supposed to be doing, but it just, you know, I was trying to fit in. I was trying to be what I thought I was supposed to be, and but yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I was even married once.
Uh-huh. Oh, you were?
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, that didn't last very long, but
okay.
yeah, it did.
Well, maybe we'll get,
Pause for one more minute.
sure.
I think your mic is not working.
Oh, no.
No.
But I thought I had changed the battery in this one, but it may have been that one.
I don't know.
I think it was that one that you've got your hands on now.
I can't tell because
I
she
think
moved
you-
them around. They were all moved around. They got shuffled, Barry.
Mhm.
She was playing the shell game with only two shells. Uh-oh. Now she's really into it.
Come on. Barry.
I'm putting it.
We haven't missed anything.
Oh,
I mean,
that's good.
His mic picks up everything, so
I
it's
think
not.
you just laid it in the middle of the table.
Now, let's see.
Speak.
You speak.
Oh, okay. How's that?
Go again.
Okay, how was that?
That's fine.
Hmm. Do you think maybe like there was a connection issue or something there that,
I
like,
don't
maybe
know.
it's like a
Let's see.
short in the cable or the
Here we go
connection?
again.
I'm not gonna touch it yet because there's no battery in it. You took the battery out, didn't you?
Yeah, it's right there.
So that won't work now.
They're both good batteries. Okay. maybe not. Now, you speak.
Hello there.
Louder.
Hello there.
Good.
Haha.
See, all we have to do is get you on it.
Okay.
Come on.
Do you want a hammer? I have a number of them downstairs. I even have a really big one if you get completely frustrated.
Okay, I think we're ready to go again.
Okay.
And this has been rolling all along, so whenever anybody transcribes it, the embarrassment will be clear.
Yes. All right. Sounds
Whose
good.
embarrassment is that we're speaking about? Mine?
Okay. So getting back to where did you graduate from high school?
I graduated from high school in Philadelphia High School for Girls. I only got to go there for 1 year, and I surely wish I could have gone there for the whole, actually that's a 4-year high school. I wish I could have gone there the whole time, but I didn't. It didn't work out that way. So, yeah, it's funny that my youngest sister's also a lesbian, and my straight sister's in the middle, and she's the one who got to go to Girls High for all 4 years, but the two of us didn't. And I mean, Girls High was a really great place. It was so nice to be in a place where you weren't in competition with boys, and where the focus of the energy and the schooling and everything was on girls. And I really believe that having schools segregated by sex until you get out of high school is a great idea. I think everybody would benefit from that. So, but that's not the way the education system is going. But I think it's good.
So once you graduated from high school, what did you do at that point?
I went to art school. I went to Tyler College of Art. It's in Philadelphia. It's a part of Temple University. And that's where I got into making jewelry. And I majored in jewelry. At first I thought I wanted to be a school teacher. And then I worked a summer like at a camp, and it was, like an art teacher at this camp. And I said, oh man, I don't think I can deal with children. They're like really hard to work with. And I also remembered how when I was in Easton, and just a regular public school, Girls High is all academic. So the art teacher in Girls High had respect and was treated nicely, and all the girls who were art majors in Girls High wanted to go to art school. Meanwhile, when I was in the regular public school in Easton, there were 2 of us who were serious art students who were in the art program, and then there were lots of like jocks who were just taking something, said they could graduate, and they were like into throwing paint and sticking clay on the ceiling and stuff. And I thought I didn't want to spend my career that way, so I thought maybe I could be a jeweler and make a living. So that was actually how I got into it. I thought about it and I said, well, commercial art looks like that's really cutthroat and corporate, and I didn't think I'd fit in too well to that, so I decided I'd try to be a little crafty person. And here I am. What is it, almost 50 years later, still doing it. I guess it's like about 48.
Wow.
Yeah.
Great. So once you graduated from Tyler, what did you do at that point?
I was fortunate enough to get jobs working for commercial jewelers. I worked for one in Bala Cynwyd, and I worked there for about a year. It was a retail store, and we were doing repair work and assembly. And then I got a job on Sansom Street in Jewelers Row, and I worked there. I think at that point I might have started working part-time and making jewelry at home. I'm not too clear about that, but I was working for him, and I learned a whole lot about the techniques of how to actually make a living at making jewelry. Because when you graduate from art school, you know how to do all these kind of wild things and all these interesting techniques that you maybe will use very, very infrequently. But when I worked in a trade shop, then I learned how to, go about actually putting some of that stuff to use in a practical way. So then after that, I moved out to Denver, Colorado. And that was the period when I was married to David, and he wanted to move out there. So I mean, I was 21 or something. So I said, okay, let's go out to Colorado. And then it was when I was out there that I opened my first store. And I worked at the Denver Folklore Center, and that was a very interesting place to be. And then I met a woman there who had a custom sewing shop, and she couldn't make a living at that. And so she proposed that we would share this little store that she rented, and she would work the store 3 days a week, and I would work the store 3 days a week. And the other 3 days a week, we each worked at the Denver Folklore Center. So we sort of like mirrored each other or shadowed each other. We hardly ever saw each other, but we were getting things done. So that was how I got started. And then I broke up with David in a very volatile termination of that relationship, and I moved out to Park City, Utah. And I had a jewelry store out there for a while, for like about three years, I think it was, until living in a resort town in the mid-'70s was not really good for my health. It was a lot of fun. Then I moved back east, and that's when I met my first girlfriend.
Oh, okay.
So, yeah, it was actually in Pennsylvania, actually in Lancaster.
So you moved back to Lancaster when you...
Yeah, I had never lived in Lancaster before. I had no intention of living in Lancaster. I wanted to move to Maine. But what had happened is, in the amount of time I was out west, moving around out there, my father got transferred from Swarthmore to Lancaster. And I had a big U-Haul truck, and I brought it to their driveway, and I unloaded my stuff into their laundry room and garage. And gave the truck back, and I thought, well, I'll be here for a little while, and then I'm going to go up to Maine and find out where I want to be, and then I'll go up, take everything up there. So I started making jewelry in their laundry room, and this was the spring of '76, and went around to, they had like little craft shows that would be in strip malls. They'd be down in Conestoga at the Fire Company. And I started going to those and selling my jewelry, and people really liked it, and I liked it, and I started riding my bicycle around here, and I really liked that. It was really a lot of fun. So I never left. I've gotten up to Maine several times for a visit, but I'm just stuck here in Lancaster, and I'm real happy to be here. So. And also during that early period when I was first, operating out of my parents' laundry room, and I mean, I was living in the parsonage. I met my girlfriend Pat and at a craft fair in F&M, in the gym at F&M, and we got involved, and I was not about ready to move after that. So that's kind of all she wrote in that department. And speaking of like coming out and when did I know I was gay, my sister Kate, the youngest one, had come out maybe like 3 years earlier. She never was with a man. She like knew what she was doing her whole time. And she came back east, after I told her, and she was like, well, all I can say is it's about time.
She knew.
She said, I just didn't know how long it was going to take you to get things figured out here, And for me personally, when I first got involved with Pat, I felt like I had such a huge weight lifted off of me, because it was like I didn't have to try to be something I wasn't anymore. It was just like, oh my God, this is right, and this has been right all along, and it just took me all these years to figure it out. And my other regret, besides not going to Girls High for all that long, was I didn't realize, right away. But you can't change it. It's just the way it is. But at the time, that was what I felt. I felt like, oh my word, I sure wish I hadn't wasted all my time, barking up the wrong tree or, chasing after the wrong thing. But that's okay.
So how did your parents take and the rest of your family take
That was
coming out?
very interesting. Good you asked. My dad, as we said, was a Methodist minister. And he was very supportive by the time I came out. Now, my sister Kate came out to him way before. And he wasn't so cool with that. And he was into what did we do wrong kind of a mode. There had been other things that had gone on in the family that, I mean, at the time Kate came out, it was just the third thing that happened. Each of his other two daughters had really seriously acted out. So he was just like, oh no, what have I ever done wrong? And I just said, nothing, it's just the way she is, it's just fine, there's nothing wrong. And so then when I came out, and I remember telling him we were riding in the car, and I was in the back seat. My mom and dad were in the front seat, and I told him, and I expected, fireworks and all this stuff, and he was very accepting of it. And to both of my parents' credit, they never disowned us, never acted like they were going to, never tried to get us to change who we were, never tried to get us to go to therapy or any of that. And even it was a couple of years later, my dad wrote a paper, and because I mean he belonged to a group of Methodist ministers who would get together and present papers, and it was his turn to write a paper, and he wrote a paper about how it wasn't like in the scripture anything against homosexuality, and he was refuting a lot of the scriptural references that were used by a lot of evangelicals and religious people to say that it's really against the Bible and everything like that. So I really had to give him a lot of credit for that, because a lot of people wouldn't come around like that, and he did, and he was very supportive, and he was very supportive of me and my relationships, and just truly wanted his daughters to be happy, and so.
Mm-hmm. How about your mother?
Oh, she was fine too, and my grandmother stopped. Well, my grandmother stopped. The one who lived with us died, I think, before any of that ever happened. So, yeah, my mom was good too. She was very supportive. I was with Sue, I don't know whether you met her or not. She and I are the ones who opened Sharp Jewelers in '84. She works for me now. And we were a couple back when we opened Sharp Jewelers. And my mother was very supportive of that. But she died in '86. So, my dad just died last year. He was 96 years old.
Wow.
Actually 95. It would have been 96 in the winter. So, yeah.
In terms of your work in Lancaster, you said you had a series of locations, I guess, or different
Yeah,
places
when I
that you-
first opened my very first store in Lancaster, it was in Lidditz. And then I moved to California for a very short period of time. My girlfriend Pat wanted to move to California. See, I got taken to Denver by David and to California by Pat. And I will say to anybody who's young who's listening to this, don't move anywhere unless you want to move there. If you want to move there, fine. But if you're moving there because somebody else wants to do it, don't do it. So anyway, I went out to California, and I'm not a California girl. And I came back to Pennsylvania, and I've been here. I moved back here in '79, and I have been here ever since.
And your relationship with Pat was your first relationship?
Yeah, she stayed. She actually moved from California to Colorado, and I moved there with her. I stayed there for, I think, a week. I thought, my feeling was, well, this relationship's going nowhere. I don't want to be in California. Colorado's halfway home. So I went to Colorado, and I was like, I didn't know when I'd get back to Pennsylvania, but I knew I would. And then I think it was actually really 2 weeks, and I just came out here and got involved with Sue, and I just said, you know, I called Pat and I said, I'm coming back, I'm packing my stuff, and then, you know, it's like, this is over. And so then I've been here and ever since. But I worked, when I came back to Pennsylvania in '79, I made prosthetics. I made artificial legs, and I worked in orthotics. I made, you know, this big plastic, like, hip thing, body things, and leg braces, and I sewed the leather cuffs and all of that. I did that for 5 years, and I made jewelry in my dining room this time. I'm out of the laundry room. And then Sue and I, Sue came into some money, and we decided to open Sharp Jewelers. And we opened Sharp Jewelers in the summer of 1984 in North Queen Street, 52 North Queen Street in Place Marie. And Sharp Jewelers went until 2001, and then we sold that to Margie, I can't remember her last name, but anyway, she bought it. Sue went down to Maryland and worked in a base sail, so it's like a charter sailing company. And I opened J.A. Sharp Custom Jeweler in the 300 block of North Queen Street, and that's where I've been now for 15 years. So that's the story.
Okay. And your relationship with Sue then, did it end at that point?
We broke up as a couple. It was shortly after my mom died. And then we worked together for a while, and managed to patch up our grievances. And partly because we were in business together, and it wasn't like you could just quit and go to another job, which was my first feeling. It's like, oh, well, I'm gonna quit and I'm gonna move. But that wasn't a possibility, so I had to stay put, and I think that was one of the most valuable experiences in my whole life, because I couldn't run away from myself anymore, because I was forced to stay and deal with it. And that's when I think I finally, you know, came to terms with things and started to grow up. You know, you can't run around anymore. I think that's a solution a lot of people have. Well, things aren't working, I'm going to move somewhere else and it'll be fine. But whatever it is that isn't working usually is coming from here, and you take it with you. And you get to the new place, and after the novelty of the new place wears off, son of a gun, here's the same thing again. So not going anywhere really helped, and now Sue and I are good friends, and so there you go.
And did you have any other relationships after Sue, or?
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, I did.
Talk about those.
Say what?
Talk about those.
Okay, when Sue and I first broke up, I was in a really bad way, and it was also like right after my mom died, so I hit a bottom, a really bad bottom. And what I didn't tell you when I left Park City, Utah, I alluded to it. I was very much into partying, and so I was drinking too much, and out there I was using drugs too much. So when I came back east, the drugs kind of faded away, but the drinking didn't. And then when Sue and I broke up, my mom died, I got into a relationship just kind of to save myself from whatever it was. I don't know, myself or something, but I grabbed onto the first person who wouldn't push me away, and so I was with her for a couple of years, and then I got sober, and then that relationship couldn't survive my getting sober, so that ended. And then I was single for a while, and then I dated a woman in my sobriety, and she was also in AA, and we did that for a while, and then we never lived together or anything. And then I was with another woman for a while. And then I had a relationship with a woman named Sylvia, and we're the ones who opened J.A. Sharp Custom Jeweler together. And she did not have a jewelry background, but she, you know, had a business background. And IT background, really good. And we opened J.A. Sharp together, and we were together for 12 years, and then I don't know what happened, but she just kind of lost interest. So what can I say? So now it's me and my dog. He doesn't lose interest. And I've gotten used to being single, and I was very hard at first because I didn't understand, and I still don't understand what happened, but it happened, and so I'm getting used to being single, and it's okay. It really is. It's fine. It wasn't what I thought I'd be, but it's all right.
And in terms of your work, tell me more about, I guess, what you appreciate most about the ability to be a jewelry designer and to be creative, and
what do I appreciate most? Again, it's hard to know because it's like I always am creative, or I don't know. I don't actually think of myself as creative like an fine artist who has just got this like crazy urge to just sort of make things out of thin air. And that's probably not how it is for them, but that's how I have it in my mind. I feel like I'm a crafts person, and that I have to make things that work. I have to make things that have a function. I mean, when I was in school, I did drawings. I have drawings that I've done on the walls and stuff like that, but I don't do that anymore. It's like I want to make something that has a purpose, and if I'm not making jewelry, I'm like doing other things like that, puttering around. So I feel like that's just something that I need to do, or that's who I am, and that's, like if I didn't make jewelry and I couldn't make jewelry and I needed to get another job, I would have to do something where I was working with my hands. Like I couldn't do what my middle sister does. She loves numbers, and she's like an accountant, and she's really, really good at that. But I could never do it. Even if I can make numbers work, I need to do something hands-on. So I appreciate that. I think I appreciate being able to, have my own store, take my dog to work. It's got difficulties. I mean, being your own boss is not, it gets romanticized. I mean, it's a lot of hard work. But again, I've been doing that for pretty much my whole career, except for that interlude when I was making prosthetics. Again, I was making something. That was fun. They were really functional. That was fun too because the scale was so much bigger. Instead of making little tiny things, I was making legs, and that was fun. But I like making things for people. What we do is things that are really special, that have a real lot of personal meaning. So I'm a part of a process that is like really personal for the customer when they come in. They're getting married, or they're getting, a present for someone that they love, or they have stones that have been their mother's or their grandmother's or something like that, and they want to have them put into something. So a lot of what we work with is stuff that has a lot of emotional meaning, and that's really satisfying to do that. And I think it is meaningful to the people too, because they get to have a relationship with Andrea and me. They have a relationship with us, and it's human to human, and we've made friendships, good friendships with people who've just walked into the store initially because they wanted something, and you get to know each other, and it's a good human contact, and the jewelry's made by a human being and not by, a machine, which is, I think you get that human energy gets put into the piece of jewelry as well. So I like that a whole lot.
Good. Do you think being lesbian has any effect on your work in terms of, does it have any kind of effect on where you take your work or your creativity or your...
I don't know anymore. I know when I first started making jewelry in Lancaster, Sue and I, it was also when the Pride festivals were first kind of coming into being, and we went to Pride festivals. We went to Women's Fest, and we went to the Pride Festival in Harrisburg, and we went to the Pride festivals in Philadelphia, and it really helped support the business, because when we first opened our storefront, we weren't necessarily making enough money to completely go by that, and we were also, it was a form of advertising, so it was very helpful in that regard. And for a while, it seemed like Andrea said, because she was Andrea worked for me back in the early 90s. Then she went off and worked for other jewelers, and now she's been working for me for like the last 11 years. So she said when she first came and started working for me again, that there didn't seem to be as much of a gay clientele as there had been back in the 90s. And it seems to have, I don't know, resurfaced. And I really like it. I like dealing with, gay customers, because it's just a feeling of family. And when gay marriages became legalized, it was like I would get choked up. I mean, the couples would come in who'd been together for like 30 years or more, and they would, sometimes I'd just be fixing rings that they had that I'd made 25 years ago. And I mean, that kind of history with me and them, and the history of them together, I mean, it's like every single time they come in, I would get all choked up, and I'm not like that kind of a girl. I don't choke up real easily, but that would do it to me, or, there were a couple of guys who had been together for over 40 years. And yeah, my sister Kate got married before it was legal nationwide. She and her partner came in, and we went up to New York City and got married, and they got married in City Hall, and I was the witness. And my sister Lois, she just lives in, outside of Philly, and her older daughter wanted to come along. So there were the three of us, and my dad was in no physical condition to go, and he really wanted to go. He wanted to be a part of that, and he sent a wedding gift to him. But yeah, that was really cool. I've gotten completely off the track, so I'm sorry.
No, that's quite all right.
Oh, okay. But I did want to say that when my sister's older daughter, Elise, went, and Lois said, why do you want to go to this? She says, it's really important to me, because Kate and Eileen had been together for like close to 40 years at the time they got married. And she said, Aunt Eileen is always been in my life. She's always been a part of my life, and now that they can get married, it's really important, and I want to go and be there for it. So I thought that was really cool.
In addition to the Pride festivals, did you have any involvement over the years at all in the LGBT community in terms of like the organizations in Lancaster or the ordinance?
I've been like the member of the organizations, and I like advertise in the publications and things like that, but I tend to spend so much of my energy at the store that I don't like belong to other kinds of organizations where I'm like go to meetings and things like that. So yeah, but I mean, like when the AIDS epidemic first started, and they first were having the AIDS banquets and stuff like that, Sue and I were always donating and going to all of those, and we were going to the fab things and stuff, things like that. But as far as like sitting down in meetings, not so much.
Do you recall some of the events that have happened in Lancaster that you think had some significance to the development of the community here in terms of like the passing of the civil rights ordinance in the city, and then later on there was a KKK.
Oh, I remember
demonstration.
that. Oh
Yeah.
my word, that was something. I can remember being there and watching them walk by, and because we all went and stood on the sidewalks to make our presence. Yeah, that was kind of scary. Yeah, I mean, I don't know what your question was exactly, but I do remember that.
Yeah, I was basically trying to get some sense of your recollections from that period of time of
Yeah.
how that affected the city and your.
Yeah, I can remember that it kind of coalesced a lot of us. You know, we were incensed and we came together. One of the things, like even my sister Kate, who was living out in Colorado, and then she and Eileen moved to New Haven, Connecticut for a while. And whenever she'd come to Lancaster, she would always say, you know, I cannot believe how big the lesbian community is and how strong it is in Lancaster. Now, I was a lot younger then and going to potlucks and bars and everything, because that was before I got sober. So I was more aware of the community. Now I'm, you know, in a different stage of my life, and I don't necessarily see that so much. But I mean, I still have friends that go back to, you know, we get together at people's houses and things, and we go back to being friends in the 70s. So I mean, that's pretty nice that way. So I think the community, back then the community was kind of more visible to ourselves, I think, than it was to the public. You know, it was sort of like we were underground so much. You know, nobody could say who they were. One woman I was dating was a vice principal at a high school, and you know, she would have to have dates to go to the proms because she had to go to the proms, and you know, all that sort of stuff. You know, because if you were uncovered as being gay, you would be out of a job. Maybe just, you know, they wouldn't call it disbarred, but you'd be in a lot of serious trouble, you know.
You mentioned about going out to bars when you were in your younger days. Do you recall much about the bars in Lancaster in those days?
Sue and I lived about, 2 blocks away from the Sundown, which was the infamous lesbian bar of Lancaster, and we went there all the time because I mean we could go. We didn't have to drive. We would go there, you know, till last call, and then kind of meander our little way on home. And yeah, oh boy, we would party there, and we had a lot of fun. We went there. We sometimes went to the Tally Ho, but that was so close, and it was, you know, women, so we went there more. We did go to the Tally Ho sometime. I always liked going to drag shows. I always think they're a lot of fun. You know, sometimes I think I need to do it again because they are so much fun. You know, it's. I always enjoyed going when we were going to the Pride festivals and had as vendors. I really liked doing that, and to this day, if I'm going to an art show or something like that, I'd rather be a vendor than be somebody in the crowd, because when you're a vendor, you've got something to do, and you can interact with people, and they're going to come up to you and interact with you, and it's not that sort of like milling around thing. But I just really enjoyed doing those. They were hard work, but they were also a lot of fun. We had good times.
Good. Let's see. In terms of any other
We're good.
organizational affiliations or anything like that, just professional organizations or?
Well, I belong to the HRC, the Human Rights Commission. As far as, you know, like gay things, I belong to the YMCA. What else? I don't.
Okay.
You know, I belong to professional things, but you know, but I don't know what.
Okay. What would you say are maybe some of the important events or turning points in your life?
Well, the one that I talked about was that time that Sue and I broke up and I couldn't leave. The other one was getting sober. That was pretty serious turning point in my life. Yeah, that was a real big deal. And I've been sober now since '88, so that's a long time. Pretty soon I'll be sober as long as I drank. So That's interesting thought. And you know, like, also at the time I got sober, there were a lot of my friends who also got sober and who are still sober. And it was a very interesting time. I don't go to meetings anymore, but there were some really good gay AA meetings that I used to go to. We'd have a bunch of us would drive over to York, or there was, you know, one at the Unitarian, not the Unitarian, the Quaker Church had a gay meeting. And yeah, we'd go to, you know, there's a very, I guess there still is, there's like a whole branch of the AA that's, you know, gay people. And it's fun because you've got, you know, family and being gay, and then you got people who really understand, you know, by being sober. And I do think, I don't know how it is now, but at the time I got sober, I think there was a real serious problem in the gay community with drugs and alcohol. And again, I think it's because we had to repress so much of ourselves that, you know, there's only so much of that you can handle, you know, and you've got to find an outlet. And then also, that was, back then, that was the main place that you would meet people. You know, you'd meet people to party with them, or you'd meet people to hook up with them. And that was what the whole gay community was about for years before I even came on the scene, you know. So I think that's all kind of intertwined.
In terms of just the LGBT community in general, what changes do you think have you seen that have been significant in the development of LGBT rights and
Oh my
community?
goodness, it's just absolutely amazing. It's mind-boggling. And I think it's wonderful. I think it's like that people can be treated equally, and that it's, you know, sometimes not that big a deal who you love or who you need to be with. And I think that's really something I never thought I'd ever see. You know, when I went to a big thing when the Human Rights Commission first got started, and I can't even remember it was down in Philadelphia, and they were saying that their big push was going to be to legalize gay marriage, and I thought, oh, what are you thinking? You know, it just seemed like such a far-fetched idea, and why are you even bothering with that? You should aim for something else. And it, you know, it's not all that much longer, maybe 15 or 20 years. And it happened, and I think that there has actually been a really major shift with younger people. I think that younger people who are straight don't feel that being gay is all that big a deal. I don't think that's, of course, across the board, but I think that there is more of that than there ever had been, because we are visible. And you know, that thing about being visible was really important, and come out wherever you are, it really made a difference. And then going back to being my own boss, that helped a whole lot too. You know, being able to be my own boss and being visible in Lancaster, and, you know, I mean, like, I wasn't flying a purple triangle outside of the store, but the people knew, you know, and I think that helped. And I didn't only have gay customers, I had a lot of straight customers, and, you know, I've been treated with respect for the most part. I've had a couple of incidents when not so much, but so I think that the being visible thing really helped, and I think that's made a huge difference. The thing I worry about now is I really feel concerned for the trans kids, because, I mean, with this whole thing going on about the restrooms, it's like, it doesn't matter. They've got the choice between the frying pan and the fire. It doesn't matter. Both choices are wrong with the way things are being set up right now, and I just really feel concerned for them. You know, and I can't imagine myself what it would feel like to be a kid in school and being so clear about who I wanted to be, since I myself didn't even figure that out until I was in my 20s. So, I mean, I personally can't relate to it, but, you know, that's one area that I really feel concerned about. I mean, just when before you came over, there was that thing about the ruling in, I think it was Texas, where they overturned, yeah, they overturned the judgment on that. And I mean, that's when I realized that these poor kids can't win.
You mentioned a couple of incidents that may not have been so great. Did you face any kind of situations where people?
Oh, I had people who didn't want to do business with me. I did have one jeweler in town, and he didn't say it to me, but he did say it to someone in the community, and the word got back to me. When I say community, I don't mean gay community. I mean in the Lancaster community. And he said he didn't even understand why people would come and buy jewelry from Sharp Jewelers when it's run by these lesbians, and yeah, just stupid things like that, and that was the one that really stuck in my mind. Then the other thing too is when I first got into the jewelry business back in the 69, 70, when I graduated from college, I was one of 2 women who worked on Sansom Street at the bench. The only thing that women did in the jewelry business back then was string pearls, and they worked for platers. And the women were not at bench jobs. And I went around trying to get a job, and one guy told me straight to my face that he didn't hire girls because they would get pregnant and then it would all have been a waste, so he wouldn't even hire them. So I mean, people can't really say that kind of thing anymore. They may not hire people for those reasons, but you don't know. But back then, they could say whatever kind of awful thing they wanted to right to your face. So.
Okay. Lana, can you think of any other questions that you have?
Not really. Went through it pretty.
Good. All right. Well, thank you so much, Jude.
You're very welcome.
Appreciate your time and
Yeah.
great stories. So.
Thank you. I don't think we even have to beep out anything.
No.
Great.
Thank you.
All right.
Look that over.
A little dry mouth, but not too bad. Can I take this off now? Oh, one time, this microphone reminded me, I was in downtown Lancaster in the square with my other dog, the guy before this one. And,
Don't take that off.
what?
Well, just.
Talking
don't
to
understand.
Okay.
Sit right there.
Okay, well, I was down in Center Square, and it was right before New Year's. It was like between Christmas and New Year's, and somebody from WGAL came around, and she had one of those big microphones that looks like an ice cream cone, and my dog Buddy was sitting right next to me, and she asked me if I had any New Year's resolutions, and I said, no, I don't have any New Year's resolutions, but my dog does, because he got sprayed by a skunk, and he's not going to get sprayed by skunks anymore. But the funny part was, she had this microphone, he was sitting right next to me, and she put the microphone out like that for me to talk into it, and he goes and tries to bite it, so she pulls it way back. And so then she sticks it out again, and he goes and tries to bite it. And they did put it on the TV, but they never put that thing on there with him trying to bite the microphone. And I thought they really should have run that, because it was hysterical. He was like, oh, is that for me? I would like some of that, please. He was a good boy.